Hey guys, tonight we're slipping back in time to the sooty heart of Victorian London. Picture this: the cobblestones are wet, your boots leak, and the smell in the air is a confusing mix of horse droppings, coal smoke, and yesterday's fish bones. You blink awake on a straw-stuffed mattress under a moth-eaten blanket because, yes, you're living the life of a brothel worker in the 1800s. Glamorous, right? But don't get too cozy. The fire's out, your tea is cold, and a hungover banker from Shoreditch just staggered into the parlor, demanding company. You probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know your city and local time in the comments. I love knowing where and when you're listening from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake up with a start, face sticky from the damp pillow that's never fully dry. The mattress beneath you feels like it's stuffed with potato peels and broken dreams. It's barely dawn, and someone's already shouting from the hallway, probably the housemaid trying to boil water with the single, cold chunk she scrounged from the scuttle. Your mouth tastes like last night's gin and yesterday's stress. The room is dim, always dim, because windows this close to the Thames haven't seen proper sunlight since Queen Victoria's coronation. You sit up, scratch at a flea bite, and hear the floorboards groan under the weight of someone heavier stomping about above you. That's probably Alice. She's been entertaining the same gentleman for 3 nights in a row. He must be rich, or very lonely, or both. The day begins not with a stretch, but with a shiver. Victorian winters are less frosty aesthetic and more potentially fatal. You grab your shawl stiff from last week's laundry and wrap it around yourself. Downstairs, the scent of stale beer mingles with burnt toast and lavender oil, your landlady's attempt to mask what the house really is. Outside, a cart rattles by, its wooden wheels clunking in rhythm with your headache. You peek through the curtain just enough to see the narrow alley slick with muck and cigarette butts. A mangy cat eyes a rat that's twice its size. You wonder which one of them will eat the other first. Victorian brothels don't operate on 9 to 5 schedules. No, your workday blends into your work night until time just becomes a series of candle stubs and knockings at the door. And yet the morning still matters. It's your only chance for tea gossip and the tiny illusion of routine. Breakfast, if you can call it that, is a cracked mug of lukewarm black tea with a single cube of sugar, if you're lucky, or if Alice owes you a favor. You shuffle into the narrow kitchen. The girl they call Rabbit is already there, blowing on her spoon like it'll summon a better life. She's 17 maybe, or 23. It's hard to tell with the smog and malnutrition. You both nod. Without speaking, there's no point. The walls are thin, and your voices carry. Victorian London, by the way, has a population of over 3 million, and most of them are poor, angry, or pretending not to notice you exist. The city's booming from the Industrial Revolution, but the wealth flows upward like chimney smoke. The poor get coal dust rats and a life expectancy of around 40 years if you're lucky. Scientists now know that coal particles caused widespread respiratory illness, but back then people just called it the London cough and moved on. Rabbit breaks the silence. Someone knocked last night. You nod. I didn't answer. Was it him again? You shrug. You know who she means. There's always a him. Always. Someone who comes too often, stares too long, pays too little, or none at all. As you stir your tea, a cockroach scuttles across the wall. Rabbit flicks it off with the calm of someone who's done it 5 times already this week. You both share a moment of dull amusement. Some people have pets. You have squatters with antennae. You think back to when you arrived. You didn't grow up dreaming of this life. Maybe you were a maid, a seamstress, or a factory girl. Maybe you made one bad decision or trusted one wrong man. The brothel wasn't your plan. But here you are. Because when rent's due and your brother needs medicine, choices become luxuries. It's worth noting that scientifically speaking, stress like yours leads to elevated cortisol levels. That's the hormone that tells your body you're in danger, flooding your system, raising your heart rate, even interfering with digestion. Modern researchers study this a lot. Victorian doctors, not so much. They'd probably say you have a hysterical womb. The parlor bell rings, an old brass bell with a nasty clang. Your first client of the day has arrived. You sigh, finish the tea, and begin the slow trudge upstairs to prepare. Each step creaks. You hope it creaks loud enough to wake Alice. Back in your room, you light a candle. The matchbook's almost empty. You peer at yourself in the cracked mirror, pale-faced, tired eyes, and hair pinned back with more hope than success. You splash some rose water on your cheeks. It stings, which means it's probably expired. A knock at the door. 2 sharp taps. Ready, then says the housemaid. She sounds bored. She always does. You nod, but she's already gone. You know what's expected. You paste on your smile, the one that feels like a lie, but pays the bills. The man in the parlor is older, with fingers stained from ink, and a breath that hints at brandy and spoiled meat. He smells like regret and upper management. He doesn't look you in the eye. Most don't. I won't take long, he mumbles. You hope he's right. Later, you wash your hands in the basin. The water is brownish even before you add soap. You pour the dirty water out the window into the alley because there's no indoor plumbing. Not unless you're in Mayfair, and you most certainly are not. The sun is fully up now, slanting through the grimy window, like it's embarrassed to be here. The street below buzzes with life vendors, shouting kids chasing rats for fun or dinner, maybe both. You sit back down on the bed and exhale. Just one of many appointments today. The hours stretch ahead like a hallway with no door at the end. Still, you're alive, for now. You made it through another night, and the morning didn't kill you, yet. And you still have that one sugar cube hidden under the floorboard. You might need it later. You take one more sip of cold tea before heading to your washstand. It's time for the daily ritual that's less about vanity and more about self-defense, getting dressed. Not to impress no one's here for a fashion show, but to hold together the bones of your body and the fragments of your reputation. Victorian dressing is like assembling scaffolding, and frankly, it's the most aerobic thing you'll do all day. You begin with the chemise, a thin linen slip that's supposed to protect your corset from sweat. Spoiler, it doesn't. It's also got a tear near the hem from the time you tripped over a chamber pot in the dark. Glamour abounds. Then the drawers split down the middle, for ease of well business. And after that, the petticoats, plural. Because one petticoat doesn't sufficiently hide your ankles, and we all know ankles are society's greatest threat. Then comes the corset, the infamous corset. It's not just tight, it's architecture. You loop the laces, pull them snug, and then brace yourself against the bedpost while twisting like an exorcist to tie them behind you. It takes at least 10 minutes and 5 years off your life. Scientists today say that prolonged corset wearing deformed the rib cage, displaced internal organs, and led to chronic fainting spells because oxygen is a suggestion, not a necessity. Women literally trained themselves to breathe shallowly, and fainting wasn't romantic. It was your body waving a tiny white flag. But here's the funny thing. Some girls like the corset, not because it's comfortable, God no, but because it gives them the illusion of control. The tighter it fits, the more put together you look, even if everything inside is screaming. You can't cry in a corset. There's no room. Next comes the bodice sleeves and the skirt. Yours is deep blue with a hem you've stitched 3 times already. You run your fingers over the fabric, feeling where the satin has worn to something like paper. You pin a brooch fake, but shiny, just below your collarbone because sparkle buys attention, and attention buys tips. You finally step into your boots, scuffed leather that squeak when damp. You grab your shawl, the same one you slept under. Voila! You are officially presentable. Downstairs, the others are already gathering in the parlor. The day shift begins. You catch a glimpse of May brushing her curls out with an ivory comb. She's got a face like a Valentine card and a mouth like a sailor with a grudge. She nods at you. Corset, eating your ribs again. You nod. One of them's definitely missing. She snorts. Don't worry, they're overrated. You sink into the armchair near the fireplace, which as usual is more decorative than functional. A tired flame flickers behind the grate, casting shadows over cracked wallpaper and the faint outline of water damage shaped exactly like a sneering face. You call it Sir Reginald. He judges everyone. Madame Langley enters like she's on stage, all bustle and judgment. Her dress is purple velvet with a hat shaped like a shipwreck. She eyes each of you like a teacher counting pencils before an exam. May Parlor 3. Liza, drawing room. And you? She looks at you, pursing her lips like she just bit a lemon. Reception. Clean yourself up a bit. Translation, your client this morning left a bad review, or worse, no payment at all. You smile anyway. It's part of the act. As you make your way toward the hallway, you pass the full-length mirror. You glance at it quickly, not to admire, just to confirm nothing's torn, nothing's askew, and that you still look enough like someone's fantasy to charge a shilling. The truth is, dressing isn't about beauty. It's about armor. Each layer shields you a little more from a world that wants too much and gives too little. By now, the younger girls are taking up positions like chess pieces, lounging just so on the fainting couch, adjusting stockings with performative slowness, batting lashes at shadows. You join the rotation, sitting upright, hands folded, ankles crossed. You've practiced the face vaguely, amused, modestly coy, a touch of, if you ask nicely maybe. In walks a gentleman wearing a monocle, which he removes only to clean it on a silk handkerchief, already damp with sweat. He looks you over. Ah, you'll do. You stand. You don't say anything. Neither does he. On the stairs, you count steps. Always 13. You've tried to convince Madame Langley to paint over the number on the riser, but she claims it's good luck. Of course she does. She doesn't have to climb them 5 times a day in heels. In your room, you begin the usual script. Light conversation, modest laughter, questions about his wife that you pretend not to notice. And then, after the same as always, he leaves a coin on the dresser and disappears with a tip of the hat like it's been an opera and you were just the intermission. You collapse backward on the bed, letting the corset dig into your spine like punishment. Scientists still argue whether tight-lacing was primarily a form of self-expression or an act of societal control. Was it fashion rebellion or forced conformity? The answer is yes, both, because nothing in your world is ever just one thing. Later that afternoon, you sneak out to the courtyard behind the house. The sun manages to break through the fog for once, painting the laundry line with weak gold. You hang your stockings, watching steam rise from them in the chilly air. A cat slinks past your foot. It's missing an ear, but walks like royalty. You tip your head to it. "Good afternoon, Your Majesty." It doesn't respond. Probably a Tory. A woman in the neighboring window is peeling potatoes, her children yelling behind her. She doesn't look at you, and you don't blame her. She's got enough problems without yours. The truth is, dressing up makes you invisible in plain sight. People only see what you're selling, not who you are. And the longer you wear the costume, the more it becomes your skin. Still, you prefer this to the other option, dressing down. Girls who lose their looks, or their figure, or their teeth don't last. You've seen it. One week, they're here smiling for sailors. The next, their bed is empty, and no one speaks their name again. Quirky fact of the day: Victorians believed red lipstick was the mark of a prostitute. So naturally, everyone wore pale pink or none at all, unless you worked in places like this, where color was power and subtlety was a waste of time. You apply your rouge sparingly now, just enough to keep Madame Langley off your back. By nightfall, you've changed outfits twice once after a spill, and once for a client with a thing about purple. You're tired, but dressed. And that in this life is something close to a win. You unlace the corset slowly, savoring the burn as your ribs re-expand. It's like exhaling for the first time all day. You think about the chemise you'll wear to bed, thin and torn and cotton soft. And you wonder, does any part of this count as normal? Or is normal just whatever you survive? The evening creeps in, like a drunk uncle, loud and unwelcome and full of smoke. The lamps in the brothel's front windows are lit with ritual care, casting a golden glow that's meant to say refined establishment rather than slightly haunted fire trap. You sit in the parlor, trying not to yawn. You've been working since the sun was barely more than a rumor, and your corset's still digging into your lowest rib, like it's personally offended by your existence. The madam, of course, is in fine form, pacing the floor with the clipped confidence of someone who never has to do the work herself. Madame Langley is the kind of woman who carries a fan in winter and could probably murder you with it. She scans the room, eyes sharp as sewing needles, inspecting the girls like she's about to auction off prize livestock. "May, for heaven's sake, tuck that blouse," she snaps, not even slowing her stride. "Liza, you're chewing. Again, men? Don't pay to see livestock ruminate. You're next." You try to look busy, which means rearranging the same 3 hairpins in a way that says professional, but not desperate. It rarely works. Smile more, Langley says to you without breaking stride. Then over her shoulder. And remember, you're not here to fall in love. You're here to make them feel like they might. Ah, yes, the house rules. Etched into the walls, whispered behind doors, and reinforced with financial penalties. No drunkenness unless a client wants it. No fighting unless it's quiet. No freebies. No favorites. No falling asleep with guests. And above all, don't forget to pay your room and board, which is somehow always just slightly more than what you've earned. The Victorian brothel is less of a home and more of a poorly lit factory. And Langley, she's the shift manager who reads Dickens, but relates more to Machiavelli. Every morning she posts a new rota on the kitchen wall, who gets which parlor, which room, which time slot. You learn to live by that list. To miss a shift is to lose a client. To lose a client is to earn a warning. 3 warnings and you're out. And out doesn't mean you're heading to a nice new job at a haberdashery. Scientists today might call it an example of proto-gig economy dynamics, unregulated, exploitative, and disturbingly efficient. You just call it Tuesday. But Madame Langley isn't the only one enforcing rules. The house has its own hierarchy, quiet but firm. The top girl gets first pick of clients' best room, freshest linens. How do you become top girl? Beauty with consistency and a dash of strategic betrayal never hurts. Everyone's friendly, no one's friends. The madam also finds you for everything. Late to breakfast, a penny, stockings mismatched, 2 pence. Swear in front of a client. 5. One time, you got charged for coughing in a coarse manner. That was flu season. You still haven't forgiven her. To compensate, you and the other girls have developed a system of petty rebellion, swapping clients when the madam isn't looking, watering down the sherry she claims is imported, charging double for men who smell like boiled cabbage and claiming inconvenience tax. No one speaks of it aloud, but everyone plays the game. Still, for all her flaws, Madame Langley's establishment has structure, the kind that keeps you warm in winter and mostly safe from the constable. Other houses, less reputable, offer neither. You've heard stories. A girl locked in a closet for refusing a client. Another one sold to a traveling gentleman who turned out to be less gentleman, more kidnapper. One girl vanished entirely, just gone. So you play by Langley's rules even when they make your teeth ache. Around mid-evening, the bell rings again. Another gentleman caller. You spot him through the parlor curtain tall, wearing a crushed top hat and the kind of coat that says he's pretending to be richer than he is. He takes off his gloves and you catch a glimpse of ink-stained fingers. A clerk, maybe. Or a struggling poet. Which, let's be honest, is just a fancy word for unemployed. Langley greets him with syrupy charm. Welcome, sir. May I recommend one of our lovely girls for the evening? He nods toward you. Her, the quiet one. You suppress the instinct to sigh. Being quiet is your strategy. It makes you seem mysterious or uninterested. Either way, it attracts men who think they're clever for noticing you. He's led upstairs. You follow with the practiced grace of someone who's done this so many times, it's muscle memory. At the landing, you give a tiny cough to clear your throat and warn any loitering girls to vanish. privacy is prized, even if it's an illusion. You lead him into the room. It smells faintly of lavender and old wood polish. You offer him a seat. He declines. Of course he does. He's chatty, tells you about his work at the ministry, how he's not like the others. They always say that, usually right before doing something to prove otherwise. You nod at the right moments, laugh when required, and perform your role like a seasoned actress at her 1,000th curtain call. When he leaves, he presses a shilling into your palm and says, "You've got kind eyes." You wait until the door clicks shut before rolling those kind eyes skyward. Back downstairs, the parlors groan louder. The fireplace crackles. One of the newer girls, Tilly, is attempting to play a waltz on the out-of-tune piano. She hits a sour note and winces. May hisses from the corner. "It's not that kind of establishment." Tilly shrugs. "Was just trying to lighten the mood." Rabbit speaks up from the couch. "Mood's already light. We've got gas lights, don't we?" Cue laughter, half genuine. Gallows humor is the house specialty. Interesting tidbit. Victorian brothels often competed by installing the newest tech. Gas lighting, literally not emotionally, was a selling point. Clients loved it. But it also caused frequent fires. One brothel in Whitechapel went up like a tinderbox after a client knocked over a lamp mid-romp. No one ever found his shoes. And here's the kicker: scientists still argue whether brothel hierarchies mimicked traditional Victorian domestic structures or subverted them entirely. Were madams mini matriarchs or capitalist overlords depends on who you ask and how much gin they've had. As the night deepens, Madame Langley begins her rounds. She checks the rooms, listens at doors, notes who's working and who's not. Every girl makes a mental calculation. Accept one more client for the money, or feign a stomachache and risk the fine. You choose the latter. You're spent. You tell Rabbit you've got the lady's cramp, and she nods solemnly. Universal excuse. Unquestioned. Even Langley doesn't argue with it. Biology is the one house rule she can't outfine. You retreat to your room, peel off your skirt, unhook your corset, and lie back on the bed. The springs creak. Your feet throb. Your head pulses in rhythm with the house's sounds, laughter, footsteps, the faint clink of coins. Somewhere outside, a bell tolls midnight. You made it through another day, another rota, another round of rules designed to keep you just barely afloat. You wonder if tomorrow's list will be kinder. It never is. But still, you wonder. You lie in bed, still dressed, down to your shift, staring at the ceiling, where damp spots bloom like slow-moving ink. There's one shaped like a rabbit, or maybe a small man falling over. You're not sure which. The muffled sound of giggles and boots echo through the thin walls. Someone's entertaining a very drunk client. You hope it's not May again. She'll be grumpy at breakfast. Eventually, you drift into a light doze, but your sleep is never deep. This house has its own rhythm, and it doesn't care much for yours. By morning, you're up before the sun again. Cold feet hit colder floor. You dress in a blur, splashing a bit of water on your face and hoping you don't smell like whatever he left behind. There's no time to dwell. Langley's bark is already echoing down the hall, assigning morning tasks and shifts like she's got stock and stress. Downstairs breakfast is a sad affair. Boiled oats weak tea and a crust of bread that could qualify as a weapon. You chew slowly because it gives you something to do. Across from you, Tilly picks at her meal like it might attack her back. Then Rabbit says, "Coal Baron's coming tonight." The whole room stills. Even the spoon in your hand pauses mid-air. Rabbit nods, pleased with the reaction. The one with the ring on every finger and a beard like Father Christmas. Paid Alice a full crown last time. A full crown. That's more than any of you make in 3 nights combined. The anticipation spreads like fog. Girls straighten their backs, tug at sleeves, glance into the warped mirror above the hearth. Every one of you starts planning what to wear, how to smile, how to make sure he notices you. But you also remember the rumors. He talks too much, drinks too fast. Once asked a girl to wear a porcelain mask and call him mother. The Coal Baron, like most Victorian clients, is a walking contradiction. Rich enough to look down on you, lonely enough to keep returning. One minute he's complimenting your vocabulary, the next he's weeping into your lap about a lost ferret. You can't make this stuff up. By noon, the parlor is scrubbed, the hearth swept, and the velvet settee, scarred by candle wax and questionable stains, has been disguised with a new lace doily. Everyone's on edge, even Langley. She's pacing like a cat on glass. May corners you while brushing her curls with something resembling urgency. "You want him?" she asks, meaning the Coal Baron. You blink. "Do I look suicidal?" She grins. "No, but you look bored. It's true. The monotony is bone deep. The same clients, the same clothes, the same tired flirtations. You've caught yourself quoting poetry mid-appointment just to see if anyone notices. Spoiler, they don't. Maybe I'll flip a coin, you say. But really, you're not sure you want him or the kind of attention he brings. Later, the doorbell rings with the force of Judgment Day. The parlor falls into silence. He's early. He enters like he owns the place, boots thudding across the floorboards, rings clinking as he removes his gloves. His beard is even longer than you remember. He smells like pipe tobacco and soot with an undercurrent of something metallic. Iron, maybe, or expensive cologne gone wrong. Langley greets him like an old flame she never liked. "Mr. Pruitt, welcome back." He scans the room slowly, like he's choosing a book in a library. You keep your posture relaxed, but alert, one ankle crossed over the other. Eye contact, but not too much. He points, her. Everyone turns. He's pointing at you. "Oh, fantastic." You rise, give a slight curtsy. He likes that and gesture toward the staircase. He follows his footsteps, heavier than you expect, like the floor is trying to reject him. In your room, he sits without invitation. You stand near the window, pretending to be casual. He talks as expected. About coal prices, about the Prime Minister, about his latest invention, steam-powered trousers. You're not sure if he's joking, and you're afraid to ask. You nod, interjecting with soft mms, and how fascinating at appropriate intervals. Eventually, the business begins and ends in a blur of velvet buttons and faint embarrassment. He gives you a sovereign on his way out, a sovereign. You stare at it, still warm from his palm. It's heavy in your hand, worth more than your last 5 shifts combined. Your heart races. Downstairs, you can't help the half smile you wear. Rabbit notices. Good tip. You flash the coin just enough for her to see. Her eyebrows shoot up. Queen's luck, that is. Maybe. Or maybe he just liked the way you poured his sherry without flinching when he started quoting Latin. Scientists today say emotional labor is as draining as physical labor, sometimes more so. Brothel work in the Victorian era was a marathon of both. You didn't just sell your body, you rented your attention, your time, your patience. You became an actor, therapist, nurse, and ventriloquist dummy, all in one. As evening stretches on, the clientele becomes a parade. A banker with breath like pickled onions, a doctor who smells faintly of formaldehyde, a nervous first-timer who asks if he's doing it correctly. You say yes. He tips generously. Around 10, there's a lull. You sit in the parlor, resting your feet, watching the fire flicker. May massages her temples. Tilly is darning her stockings. Langley is in her office counting something or cursing someone. That's when the door creaks open. Not a knock. A creak. You all freeze. A man enters, dressed in morning black, face-pale lips thin as sewing thread. He doesn't say a word, just hands Langley a note and leaves. She reads it, then sighs. New inspector in Whitechapel. Wants to review licensing. You all groan. That means a shakedown. More bribes. Possibly a raid. Do we even have a license? Rabbit asks. Langley smirks. Do you have morals? Paperwork's just paper. She's not wrong. The laws around sex work in Victorian London were confusing, contradictory, and mostly enforced at random. The 1864 Contagious Diseases Act allowed police to detain suspected prostitutes for medical examination, often without cause. Scholars still argue whether the law was about public health or public control. The girls just called it that awful week you spend in the clinic, while men make jokes about you in the papers. The coal baron may be gone, but the night is far from over. As midnight nears, you watch the shadows lengthen, the candles burn low, and your own energy dissolve like sugar in weak tea. Upstairs, someone's crying, softly. Tilly, maybe. You close your eyes and listen. To the whispers, the footsteps, the parlor clock ticking off the seconds between clients. The house rules will still be here tomorrow. And so you suppose, will you? You wake to the sound of coughing. Not yours, not this time. Deep rattling, wet at the edges. Through the thin wall, you hear Tilly hacking into a rag she probably doesn't want anyone to see. The room next to hers smells faintly of camphor, the go-to remedy for just about everything Victorian science couldn't actually cure. You press your face into the pillow to block it out, but the day is already waiting for you. Like a customer with bad breath and too many opinions. Downstairs, the kettle is singing off key and the girls are quieter than usual. Tilly's not at the table. May pours her tea with a sour look. If she gives me whatever she's got, she mutters, I swear I'll put mercury in her stockings. She's joking. Probably. You sit and sip your tea, which is somehow both burnt and watery. The bread is stale, the butter's more guesswork than dairy, and the air smells like someone left a fish market open overnight. May slaps the table. 3 clients yesterday. 2 of them wanted me to pretend I was their governess, and the third cried on my shoulder for 15 solid minutes. My corset is still damp. Sympathy tax, Rabbit says through a mouthful of oats. You should have doubled your rate. You lean back and stare at the ceiling. It's like we're running a charity for lonely men and confused fetishists. quirky as it sounds, some Victorian men did have oddly specific requests, some harmless, some bizarre. One famously asked a brothel worker to read him tax law in a Scottish accent while he sat fully clothed in a bathtub full of cold milk. He paid double. But hygiene. That's the real issue, not the milk, just hygiene in general. For most Londoners in the 19th century, soap was more of an idea than a habit. Public bathhouses existed, yes, but they weren't free, and for a working girl, every penny mattered. Baths cost tuppence, towels cost extra. Cleanliness was a luxury. Your own washing routine involves a chipped basin and a bar of soap that smells like despair and pine needles. You do what you can, but it's mostly for show. The men aren't here for sanitation. You've seen clients who smelled like they wrestled a dead sheep in the summer sun and still thought they were God's gift to women. Doctors of the era weren't much better. One particularly respected physician once claimed that disease came from bad air. Miasma, they called it. No germs, no bacteria, just invisible stink. So naturally, everyone threw perfume on everything and hoped for the best. People carried pomanders filled with spices or herbs, sometimes tied inside their corsets, so they could breathe through lavender, rather than lungfuls of whatever London had cooked up that week. Scientifically, we now know London's air in the Victorian era was saturated with sulfur dioxide and soot particles. A 2023 environmental study estimated that coal burning caused long-term neurological issues. But back then, coal meant progress, and no one cared if it killed you slowly as long as it kept you warm. And you are warm. Too warm. By midday, the parlor gets stuffy. Rabbit cracks the window, and instantly, the smell of horse manure and river rot wafts in like an old friend with bad timing. Langley enters fanning herself with yesterday's newsprint. Ladies, we've a guest tonight. Naval officer, important, and very punctual. I expect everyone bathed, corseted, and sober. May raises an eyebrow. Do we get hazard pay? Langley doesn't answer. She rarely does. You trudge upstairs to your room, refill the basin, and perform the ceremonial splash and scrub. The soap slides out of your hand and disappears under the dresser. You let it go. There are worse things under there. You rinse with a damp cloth and pat yourself dry. The towel smells faintly of mildew and lavender, clean by this house's standards. The naval officer arrives at 7. Gold buttons, salt-bleached outcoat, the kind of posture that says I've seen battle and I expect a discount. Langley ushers him in, like royalty fussing with his gloves and offering him the special port, which is just watered-down sherry in a fancy decanter. He chooses Rabbit, who pastes on her professional smile and glides upstairs. You catch her winking behind his back. You hope it's a good sign. Not everyone's so lucky. The next man through the door is soaked in gin and smells like damp rope. He mutters something about fishwives and tries to haggle. Langley brushes him off like lint. Go to the White Rose, she says sharply. They'll take you without the silver. The White Rose is the brothel down the block, where standards are elastic. Girls come back from there with missing teeth and weird stories. You've avoided it so far, but you know that kind of luck runs out. As the night deepens, the work picks up. The rooms fill, the parlor empties, and laughter echoes down the stairwell, some real, most not. You draw the short straw with a client who insists on discussing the Crimean War in detail. You nod, agree where appropriate, and somehow end up wearing his cravat as a blindfold while he quotes Byron. When it's over, he thanks you and leaves 2 coins on the bedside table, one of them chipped. You sigh, roll over, and listen to the house breathe. Here's your science moment. Modern researchers believe constant exposure to unhygienic environments can alter the microbiome of the human body, and not in good ways. Your immune system becomes hyperactive, fighting off invaders it can't see, leading to chronic fatigue, inflammation, even depression. But in 1855, they just called you melancholy and recommended leeches. By midnight, you and May sit in the kitchen, drinking what passes for cocoa. It's mostly water, a little grit, and a whisper of sweetness. Still, it warms your hands. That's something. I think Rabbit's sick, May says. Real sick. You nod. She won't say anything. Doesn't want Langley to dock her. She's coughing up blood. You stare into your cup. She'll work till she drops. Same as us, May says. Different day. The room grows quiet. You both know girls who vanished. Some went back to families that barely wanted them. Some got married, which is sort of like vanishing in another direction, and some just stopped coming down to breakfast. You finish your cocoa and head upstairs, careful not to step on the creaky stair third from the top. The floor in your room is cold. You peel off your stockings, pull the shawl over your shoulders, and sit by the window. The moon's high. London glows in its own sickly way. Gaslight, soot, fog, and dreams left to rot. Somewhere a carriage rattles past. Somewhere a constable whistles. Somewhere Tilly coughs again. And you breathe shallow, count your coins, and wonder if this is the month you can afford a real bath. With warm water and soap that doesn't run away. It's good to have goals. Your eyes flicker open sometime around dawn, and for a moment, you're not sure where or who you are. The blanket's half off, your hair's tangled, and your right hip hurts from sleeping in the exact same position night after night. You stretch, and something in your spine clicks like a door lock. Probably not a good sign. Downstairs, it's quiet. Too quiet. You pull on your robe and creep down the hall past Rabbit's room. No sound. Her door is cracked open. You peek. She's curled under her coverlet, pale as chalk, eyes closed, lips moving, as if she's whispering to someone you can't see. Her cough is softer now. Somehow that's worse. Breakfast is unattended. May is at the window watching the fog roll in. Tilly sits beside her, braiding her hair with a ribbon that used to be white. She hasn't eaten in 2 days, Tilly says. You nod. Maybe 3. May turns. Langley says we can't afford to send her to the clinic. Of course she does. The clinic is a 10-minute walk, but they don't treat you unless you're brought in by a constable or unless you pay up front. Brothel girls aren't exactly top of the list for charity care. The irony. Many of those clinics exist because of women like Rabbit. The Contagious Diseases Acts were supposed to be for public health, but only the public, not the ones infected. You remember the signs posted all over London Cleansing Ward, women only. A lie dressed up as policy. The law said it was voluntary. The practice said otherwise. Scientists still argue whether the acts helped or harmed. Some say it slowed the spread of syphilis. Others point out that targeting women only women, made the whole thing a cruel farce. The real answer, as usual, is buried somewhere beneath the money and shame. Rabbit is 19, maybe. You don't ask anymore. By midday, Langley calls a meeting. That's never good. You gather in the parlor corsets, half-done faces, half-washed, half awake. Langley stands by the hearth, tapping her fan against her leg like a metronome of menace. "We're down 2 girls," she begins. "One has influenza, the other's gone to Brighton to visit her aunt. Translation, one is sick, the other ran. Possibly in that order. That means the rest of you will need to stretch yourselves a little thinner this week. I expect your cooperation, and I expect discretion." No one speaks. What's there to say? "You stretch yourselves thin every week," she continues. "Also, a new doctor will be visiting Friday evening. Inspections. Just the usual procedure. Nothing to fear." Everything about that sentence is a lie. The inspections are part of the licensing bluff. Langley doesn't have a license. She bribes someone at the registry to say she does, and every few months, a doctor comes around to check the girls. Sometimes he's gentle, sometimes he isn't. Either way, you get poked, prodded, and pronounced clean or quarantined, and there's no recourse. May raises a hand. What about Rabbit Langley? Doesn't miss a beat. She'll be resting. You all understand what that means. After the meeting, you find a quiet moment to visit Rabbit. You bring her a biscuit and a bit of weak tea. She smiles when you enter, which is frankly heroic given her condition. She's curled up in a nest of blankets, hair plastered to her forehead, skin glistening with fever. You sit beside her and hand her the tea. "Still alive," she rasps. Only just you reply. She chuckles, then coughs so hard you think she might crack a rib. You hand her a cloth. It comes back spotted red. "Do me a favor," she whispers. "Anything. Bury this if I go. I don't want Langley charging rent for the day I die." You laugh, because what else can you do? But deep down, you know she's right. Langley would send the bill to your grave if she thought it might pay interest. That night, the house falls into a strange hush. The usual sounds heels on wood laughter from upstairs distant piano chords are gone. Even the clients seem quieter, subdued by the fog, or perhaps the weight of their own vices. You get assigned a client with a thick Scottish accent and no concept of personal space. He smells like pipe smoke and boiled cabbage and keeps calling you pedal in a way that feels vaguely threatening. He finishes quickly. Most do. You thank him, pretend to be charmed, and add another coin to your small secret stash hidden in a loose floorboard under your bed, right beside the sugar cube and the charm bracelet you haven't worn since last year. After he leaves, you wash up and light a candle. The flame wavers. The air in your room is damp heavy. You place the candle near the window and crack it open, hoping for a breeze. Across the alley, a woman is hanging laundry from a second-floor line. A toddler clings to her skirts. She sings softly, something Irish maybe. The tune is gentle, a lullaby for a world that doesn't deserve one. You close your eyes and just listen. Fun fact, Victorian-era lullabies often doubled as warnings. Rock-a-bye baby, for instance. That's not a peaceful image. It's a baby falling out of a tree. Historians still debate whether they were meant to soothe children or scare them into staying still. You think of the songs your mother used to hum. Or maybe you just think you remember. Memory's a slippery thing when every day feels like a repeat of the last. You check on Rabbit again before bed. She's asleep. You place the cloth by her hand and gently close the door. The next morning, the cloth is gone. So is Rabbit. No one says where, no one has to. Her room is stripped clean, mattress rolled blanket folded at the foot. The smell of camphor lingers like guilt. Langley says nothing. Neither does anyone else. That afternoon, the new girl arrives. Her name is Dora. She's 16. Says she came from a laundry house, wants something better. You don't know whether to laugh or cry. So you just nod, help her unpack, and show her the stair that creaks third from the top. She smiles like someone who still thinks this is temporary. You almost envy her. You watch Dora drag her small trunk across the threshold, eyes wide, as carriage wheels her cheeks still rosy from the outside air. She pauses in the doorway of her new room, the one that used to be Rabbit's, and you see it happen, that flicker of hesitation, like she's stepping into something hollowed out. You want to say something kind, something honest, but you've learned it's better to let people form their own illusions, at least for a little while. She turns to you and smiles. It smells like lavender. You nod. It does that. Don't ask why. What it really smells like is camphor rosewater and the ghost of someone who coughed herself into silence. But it's Dora's room now. The house doesn't wait. By the end of the day, she's already been rotated into the evening shift. Langley wastes nothing, not even time. You help lace her corset, adjust her petticoats, give her the speech you got when you first arrived. Smile. Say less. Listen more. Keep a coin in your shoe in case you need to bolt. She asks, does it get easier? You hesitate, then say, it gets familiar. That night, you watch her descend the stairs in borrowed silk, her boots slightly too big. The client is waiting in the parlor, already drunk. You wish she had a better start. You wish you all did. You retreat to the kitchen to count your week's takings. 4 coins, 1 chipped. Not bad considering. You hide them in the usual place. Floorboard 3, with your modest hoard, 6 shillings a button from someone's naval coat, and a note from a client who once promised to take you to Paris. You think he meant it at the time. You also think he forgot your name before he reached the corner. There's a science to survival here. It's not just beauty or charm, it's information. You learn to eavesdrop, without seeming nosy, to guess a man's trade from his hands, to tell the difference between empty promises and profitable lies. You start keeping mental lists: who tips, who talks too much, who drinks before noon, who has secrets. And secrets in this house are currency. Some of the girls run little side hustles. May writes letters for illiterate clients, love notes, apology, poems, even the odd business correspondence. Tilly keeps a stash of French postcards she rents out to lonely sailors for tuppence a viewing. You've taken to reading. Not the scandal sheets real books. Old spine-cracked novels left behind by a guest with literary pretensions. You found one under the mattress 2 months ago and haven't stopped since. You're halfway through Jane Eyre now. You keep it hidden in a hollowed-out tea tin. The irony is not lost on you. Sometimes you read aloud to the others quietly after hours when Langley's gone to bed and the clients have stumbled back into the fog. 1 chapter at a time, whispered in the dark. They laugh when you do voices, but they keep coming back to listen. Even May, who claims she hates books, insists you reread the scene where Jane tells Rochester off. That girl's got brass, she mutters every time. It's not all novels and secret societies, though. There are real dangers in the trade, and everyone knows it. The diseases alone are enough to make you superstitious. Syphilis, gonorrhea, the white sickness, the burning, the falling disease. They go by many names, none of them nice. You've seen what happens to girls who catch something bad. The slow wasting, the sores, the way they start forgetting names, then days, then how to tie their stays. One girl started talking to the wall like it owed her money. Langley sent her away. No one asked where. Modern science now confirms what your instincts already knew. Untreated syphilis affects the brain. Neurosyphilis, they call it. Memory loss, tremors, hallucinations. In your world, it's just another cause of the quiet madness that creeps in like fog under the door. That's why you watch everything. Listen to everyone. And slowly, you begin to build your own little power. It starts with a note left in your room. No name, just a time and place. The greenhouse, at the corner of Fleet and Rose, Tuesday afternoon. You recognize the handwriting. Mr. Pendle, a client with political ambitions and a weakness for strong women in silk. You meet him there, surrounded by overgrown ivy and whispering leaves. He offers you a seat, brings you candied violets in a paper cone. You almost laugh. "I trust you've been well," he says, all smooth vowels and practiced charm. "Well enough," you reply, "though I assume you didn't invite me here to discuss the weather." He smiles. "Quite right. I have a request." Of course he does. He wants information about another client, a judge. Name, habits, proclivities. You ask why. Let's say his rulings have been inconvenient. You raise an eyebrow. "And what's in it for me?" He leans in. £10, cash. "And if you ever need a favor, I'm the man to ask." £10. Enough to buy out your room and board for 3 months. Enough to leave if you really wanted to. Enough to make a choice. You say you'll think about it. He gives you a card. No name, just a crest and an address. Back at the house, you can't stop thinking about it. About what it would mean to trade in secrets, not skin. To traffic in whispers instead of smiles. Scientifically speaking, human decision-making under prolonged stress is fundamentally altered. Cortisol affects risk assessment, nudging people toward familiar patterns, even harmful ones, because they feel safer. Scientists still argue whether this means we lose free will under duress. You're starting to think maybe we just lose imagination. That night, you read to the girls again. Dora listens with wide eyes. May leans against the wall, arms crossed, trying to look indifferent. You pause at a line and say, "Do you think she was brave?" "Jane?" May snorts. "Brave. She was reckless. Could have married safe and rich. But she didn't." Dora says quietly, "She wanted something better." You close the book. She wanted something different. The room is silent for a while. Before bed, you take the card from your pocket and slide it under the floorboard. Not yet, but maybe soon. In the meantime, you still have your little side hustle. Langley's rules don't say you can't read, or listen, or remember every little thing the important men say when they think you're not paying attention. You tuck the book under your pillow. Blow out the candle. Listen to the house settle around you like a beast curling up for sleep. You're not the top girl, not yet, but you are perhaps the quietest. And in this house, that's the same thing as powerful. The candlelight flickers across the wallpaper, casting your shadow in tall, exaggerated shapes. You lie still, corset loosened, just enough to let you breathe. Another day ends, and another night begins. The part of your schedule that officially blends performance, survival, and occasional bouts of philosophical dread. You get up before the knock, already expecting Langley's voice through the door. Evening rotation starts in 15. Try not to look dead. Classic motivational style. You rinse your face in the basin, cold water always, and dab on rouge. You don't overdo it. Subtle means expensive. Slathered means desperate. You smooth your hair, pin your bodice, and prepare for the shift that blurs memory and time until everything smells like wax and men's cologne. Downstairs, the gas lights are hissing. The parlor is freshly dusted. The fire crackles in a manner that is almost convincing. Langley surveys the room like a commander preparing for battle. Tilly's already stationed near the piano, fingers idly trailing the keys. May lounges on the fainting couch, one leg crossed, high confidence in every angle. You take your position near the bookshelves as usual. There are no real books, just dusty copies of the London Almanac and an abridged Pilgrim's Progress. You keep your hands folded, your expression neutral but inviting. You've practiced it. You could hold this face through a thunderstorm. Then the bell rings. The evening clients are different from the day crowd. Louder, drunker, less self-conscious. The coal dust is thicker on their boots. The money is looser in their hands, and the requests get stranger the longer the night goes. The first man is short, balding, and carries a bouquet of slightly wilted lilies. He asks for Dora. Everyone watches as she rises demure and trembling, and Langley beams like a schoolmistress watching her pupil get picked first. "I told you," Langley mutters to May, loud enough for you to hear. New blood always draws better tips. May rolls her eyes and downs the rest of her sherry. The next client is for you. He's mid-30s, buttoned up, wears spectacles he doesn't need, and quotes Latin the way some men quote cricket scores. He asks if you're versed in Ovid. You smile sweetly and say, "Only the naughty parts." He tips you before you've even climbed the stairs. Once in your room, he fidgets with his cuffs and launches into a story about his university years, how he once fell in love with a woman who taught Greek and owned 3 cats named after constellations. You listen, nod at the right intervals, and wonder how many times he's told this same story. He seems to be waiting for a reaction. You say, "She sounds brilliant." He sighs, like you've just given him absolution. He doesn't touch you, just asks if you'll lie beside him while he talks. You've learned that's more common than people think. Some men don't want touch, they want presence. Witness, a soft place to park their secrets. Scientifically, that makes sense. Human oxytocin levels, Reese, with non-sexual intimacy, 2-eye contact, mutual vulnerability. He leaves calmer, clearer. You leave with another 3 shillings and the strange feeling that you've been a priest. The night rolls on. You serve drinks, plump pillows. Brush past Dora on the stairs. Her cheeks flushed, her eyes shining with nerves and effort. She's doing well, too well. You hope it lasts. You know it won't. Later, May joins you on the balcony for some air. She leans on the railing, stares out at the lamplight mist. "He asked me to bark," she says flatly. You blink. "Who, the barrister?" "Called me his little fox and asked me to bark," she sighs. What does a fox even sound like? You consider. Probably offended. She snorts, then falls quiet. You ever feel like this whole house is underwater? You glance at the gas lamp. The light does shimmer. The sounds are muffled. The air is thick. Every night, there's a crash inside. Langley's voice rises sharply. Something about a broken decanter. Tilly appears in the doorway, frowning. Drunk one knocked over the lamp. Langley's fuming. You follow her back in. The lamp's dented. The carpet's singed. Langley's pacing like she's building a thunderstorm with every step. I will not have this house looking like a dockside dive, she snaps. I have inspectors due next week. And if anyone asks, we're a boarding house with generous company. You exchange glances with May. Generous indeed, Tilly mutters. Do boarding houses usually have velvet wallpaper and a brass whip on the mantel? Langley glares. It's French. It's decorative. The doorbell rings again. More footsteps. Another wave of clients. You sigh and return to your post feet. Aching corset, creaking mouth already dry. Langley catches your eye. You, upstairs? Room 5. Lord Farrell's son. Keep him occupied. Gently. You ascend the staircase like you're climbing a mountain in someone else's shoes. Room 5 is already lit. The young man inside is barely out of his teens. Soft chin, nervous hands. Eyes like a startled deer. He stammers through introductions, offers you a coin, then quickly asks if you'll simply sit with him. You nod. No pressure. He talks about politics. About how his father wants him in Parliament, but he dreams of being a playwright. You encourage him. Praise his ambition. At one point, he asks what you dream of. You pause. Books, you say, and breathing without corset bones in my ribs. He laughs. You're cleverer than anyone I know. You smile, even though you hear that a lot. It means little when it's always said after midnight in a rented room by men who'll never remember your name. He kisses your hand. You let him. He leaves with a promise to return. He probably will. They usually do. You watch him descend the stairs, then sit on the edge of the bed, rubbing your temples. A small footnote from science studies on sleep deprivation show that even mild exhaustion affects empathy and judgment. That explains why every girl in the house gets moodier after 3 long nights in a row. You're not cold-hearted, you're just tired. You check on Dora again before sleep. She's humming softly, brushing her hair. You ask how her shift went. She beams. He brought me candied ginger. You smile and say, that's a good sign. Then you return to your room, unlace your corset, count your coins, and place a fresh page in your secret notebook. You've started recording client stories, not names, but details. The ones worth remembering. The ones that might be useful. Langley has house rules, but you're building house plans. The fog doesn't roll in tonight, it seeps. A slow, sticky dampness that lingers in your lungs and drips from your curls like sweat in a church. Outside London breathes in low groans. Cartwheels grinding over cobblestones. The slap of hooves, distant bells, and something else. Something that hums beneath it all like a forgotten lullaby made of boots, secrets, and soot. You're in the kitchen peeling a bruised apple with a paring knife that's seen too much. May's to your left, slicing bread with surgical apathy. Tilly sits in the window ledge legs tucked beneath her, watching the gaslight flicker in the alley. No one speaks for a long time. Then Tilly says, "Do you believe in ghosts?" You and May glance up simultaneously, like you've rehearsed it. May snorts, I believe in rich men promising they'll come back for you. Same thing, really. Vanish when the weather changes. You say, "What kind of ghost?" Tilly shrugs. "The kind that watch, that remember, that want." There's a pause. "Room 6 is cold," she adds. "No matter how many firelighters I use." You think of room 6. It's been cold since last winter when Elsie disappeared. Not ran off, not married, not dead technically. Just gone. One night she was here. The next her boots were still at the foot of the bed and the blanket still warm. No note, no fight, no sound. Langley said she probably found a gentleman patron. May said she probably found the river. But the room remembers. That's the part no one talks about. You've heard the girls whisper it, how room 6 creaks when empty, how the mirror fogs in summer, how the air sometimes smells faintly of lye and roses. No one likes staying in there long. Langley rotates it just enough to pretend nothing's wrong. That night, Dora's assigned to it. She doesn't complain, but her smile is thinner than usual. You walk her up, help her fluff the pillows, light the fire with extra coals, tuck a sachet of lavender under the headboard, just in case. You say nothing about Elsie. Dora, to her credit, says it's not scary. Just quiet. Sometimes quiet's worse, you reply. You head back down and find May in the parlor, reading your copy of Jane Eyre again, mouth moving slightly as she traces the lines with her finger. She doesn't ask about room 6. You don't offer. The night creeps forward. Clients come and go, each leaving their mark, muddy boots, spilled sherry, a hairpin lost between cushions. You entertain one who insists on speaking in French, despite knowing only 4 words. Another asks you to sing. You sing softly, a lullaby your mother used to hum, and he weeps into his waistcoat, like it's the first human sound he's heard in years. After midnight, the house quiets. You slip out to the courtyard for air. The night is thick with fog, the kind that swallows sound. Even your breath feels muffled. That's when you hear its soft footsteps above. Room 6. Your heart pauses. You know Dora's alone. The next morning, she's pale. Eyes rimmed red, voice hoarse. "I didn't sleep," she whispers, over tea. "Draft?" you ask, too casually. "I heard crying." May stiffens. You glance toward the ceiling. Room 6 yawns above like an unsatisfied question. Dora continued. It sounded like someone trying not to be heard. She says nothing more, eats nothing, doesn't touch her cup. That evening, she asks to switch rooms. Langley rolls her eyes but allows it. She always does eventually. Now, it's empty again. The whispers return. Tilly starts putting dried rosemary at the corners of her bed. May burns a candle and mutters an Irish prayer she says she learned from her grandmother. Even you find yourself knocking wood twice when you pass the landing. And yet none of it feels strange. This house holds memories like teacups hold heat. It's not haunted in the ghost story way. It's haunted in the people never quite leave way. Science, of course, has opinions. Researchers in environmental psychology suggest that emotional trauma can be spatially imprinted, meaning people associate intense experiences with physical spaces, even if those experiences weren't theirs. So, a girl sobbing in room 6 a year ago leaves behind not a ghost, but a memory signature, and everyone who enters afterward picks up the residue like a scent. But science also has its skeptics. Scholars still argue whether hauntings are psychological projections or electromagnetic disturbances, whether it's the brain, the building, or just a trick of low-frequency sound waves. You know what you believe. It's both, and neither. This house remembers pain. You start seeing shadows where there are none, glimpses in mirrors, footsteps when the stairs are empty. One night, a candle goes out by itself, and you don't light it again. Langley, when asked, just laughs. This house is too busy for ghosts. Busy, yes, but not empty. A week later, a new girl is placed in room 6. Her name is Clara. She stays one night. By morning, she's packed and gone. Leaves her earnings. Doesn't say goodbye. Langley doesn't comment. The rest of the girls go quieter after that. Dora clutches her charm bracelet now when she walks past the stairwell. Tilly sings softly to herself when she's alone. May keeps salt in her apron pocket. For protection, she says. From men or other things. You begin to notice other oddities. The gas light by the hallway always flickers even when there's no draft. The mirror in the front hall tilts slightly more each day. Once you find a flower, dried, pressed and tucked between the floorboards under your bed. You didn't put it there. You're not scared, but you're not relaxed either. And the clients. Some of them mention things too. A strange chill. A sense of being watched. One man, stoic, gray-haired Rich, pauses mid-conversation to ask, "Do you have children in this house?" You shake your head. He frowns. "I heard one crying." Another asks for room 6 specifically. You deny him, say it's under repair. He shrugs. "I stayed there last year. Met someone. Sweet girl. What was her name?" Your stomach turns. He describes her. Dark hair, nervous laugh. Smelled like cinnamon. It's Elsie. You lie and say she married. He nods, unconvinced. That night, you sleep with your shawl pulled tight around your shoulders and your hand gripping the edge of the mattress like it might float away. Somewhere down the hall, a floorboard creaks soft and slow. You tell yourself it's nothing. You don't believe it. The morning after the creak, you wake stiff as a corpse, your legs tangled in the shawl you pulled around yourself in a fit of midnight nerves. You blink into the gray light. The fire's long dead. The window's leaking fog again, and there's a smear of soot across your palm that you don't remember earning. Downstairs, the kitchen smells like burnt toast and suspicion. Langley's in her usual corner chair, scribbling in her ledger jaw, working like she's chewing stones. She doesn't look up when you enter. Tilly stirs a pot of porridge with an intensity that suggests vengeance. "Someone took my boots," she mutters. Again you ask. "They're just gone. I left them outside my room. Now they're gone." May wanders in and thumps a mug down hard. "Try the upstairs girls." Everyone goes quiet. The upstairs girls? A phrase that means everything and nothing in this house. Technically, you're all upstairs sometimes. But what they mean is, the upstairs the girls Langley keeps in the plush rooms, the better clothes, the velvet lounges where clients pay in gold and keep their gloves on. The ones who don't mingle. You don't see them often. They come and go on different schedules. Use a separate stair. Eat in their rooms. They're older, sharper, quieter. You hear them laughing, sometimes, low and controlled, like someone who already knows the punchline. You suspect they've made their own rules. Langley keeps their books separate. She denies it, of course. But once you caught her with 2 ledgers, one bound in leather, the other in cheap cloth. Guess which one had your name? Dora comes down last, hair mussed expression stiff. The girl with the green eyes was in the corridor again last night, she says, voice too calm. Everyone freezes. Which one, May asks. The tall one, Dora says. She wasn't walking, just standing at the end of the hall. You put down your tea. That girl doesn't work here anymore. She never worked here, Tilly mutters. She just shows up. Langley finally looks up. Enough. The girl is imaginary. She says it with the tone of someone who's trying to convince herself. But there are other stories too. Stranger ones. About the constable who showed up drunk 3 weeks ago and asked to see Martha, then screamed when he was told no such girl worked here. About the gentleman who paid triple to sleep in room 6 and left the next morning babbling about voices in the walls. About the guest ledger that sometimes lists names no one remembers writing down. You've started keeping your own list, folded in the back of Jane Eyre in pencil. Names, dates, oddities. Not because you expect to solve anything, just because it helps to know you're not imagining the pattern, and there is a pattern. Like the fact that every girl who's left without warning, Elsie, Clara, Miriam, spent their final weeks on the top floor. The same floor the upstairs girls occupy. You think of Rabbit, of the chill in room 6, of the mirror that tilts more every week. That evening, business picks up fast. A group of barristers arrive, 5 of them, boisterous with cigars and shiny shoes. They fill the parlor with smoke and song. One starts reciting Shakespeare. Another trips over the ottoman and laughs like he's invented gravity. Langley is in rare form, guiding clients like cattle, with a smile that could curdle cream. Gentlemen, we have just the thing for each of you. You're paired with a Mr. Aldwych, whose voice is rich and practiced, like someone who's spent too much time in courtrooms and confessionals. He doesn't want wine. He doesn't want music. He wants secrets. You strike me as observant, he says once you're upstairs. Tell me who really runs this place. You raise an eyebrow. Langley. He smiles like you've just said something adorable. No, he says. I mean really. You stall. You think someone else does. He leans forward. I think someone else owns it. I think Langley's just a placeholder. And I think you know that. You don't reply. Not because you don't have an answer, but because the way he's looking at you, you suspect that he does. He tips you 3 sovereigns when he leaves. You don't ask what for? Later you find May outside with a candle dripping wax into the cracks of the flagstones. For luck, she says. Old family thing, no. I made it up. But Langley thinks it's real, so she lets me keep the candle. You sit beside her. The night air smells like soot and old iron. She's hiding something, you say. May doesn't ask who. She just nods. Upstairs, girls don't pay room and board, never queue for the wash basin. I asked Dora to borrow hairpins from one last week. Came back with a bracelet worth more than my entire wardrobe. May exhales slowly. I've seen Langley carrying letters with a gold seal. Keeps them in her coat. Always looks nervous afterward. She's scared of someone. May says nothing. Because what's worse than ghosts? Powerful people who act like them. Science moment. Social researchers studying Victorian sex work often describe it as a microcosm of society where class, gender, wealth, and survival play out in miniature. But fringe historians, those outside the mainstream, have suggested brothels were also political arenas, safe houses, spy hubs, intelligence exchanges in silk and shadow. Is it provable? Not really. But scientists still argue whether some madams were information brokers, women who leveraged pillow talk into real influence. You're beginning to wonder if Langley is one of them. That night, while pretending to dust the parlor shelves, you find a letter tucked behind the clock. Cream paper, gold seal, a wax crest you don't recognize. You don't open it, you almost do. Instead, you slide it back and polish the glass so hard your fingers ache. Upstairs, laughter rings out, high, airy, too even. May looks up. You ever notice the upstairs girls never cry? You nod slowly, or eat. You freeze. She's right. You've never seen them in the kitchen. Never once. Later, you pass one in the hallway. Green eyes, long dress, pale skin. She doesn't blink. You turn the corner. Count to 5. Turn back. She's gone. You climb into bed that night with your coin stash under your pillow and your bootlaces tied tight, just in case. The mirror tilts again. You don't sleep. You barely sleep. And when you do, your dreams are thick with flickering candlelight and footsteps that echo long after they should. You wake before dawn, tangled in your blanket hair matted to your cheek. The mirror's still tilted. You try not to look at it. Downstairs, the parlor is too quiet. No clink of teacups, no rustle of paper, no May, even. Just Tilly, standing by the window in her shift arms crossed, watching the fog press its fingers against the glass like it wants in. She's gone, she says without turning. You blink. Who, Dora? The room tilts. She left during the night, Tilly continues. Didn't take her coat. Her shoes are still under the bed. Your mouth is dry. Langley. She said, Dora got an offer. A gentleman. Generous. They always leave for a gentleman. They always leave quietly. You feel it again, that awful tug in your gut. Not fear recognition. May enters a moment later, hair damp, jaw tight. Checked her room. Nothing's packed. Her bag's still there, open. 3 girls gone now. Each one taken in runoff or offered better. Each one last seen somewhere near the top floor. Langley doesn't look at you all day. That's how you know she knows you know. You go about your work mechanically. Wash, dress, pour tea, lace corsets. A client asks if you're feeling under the weather. You smile and say, just a draft in the spine. That night, you're sent to the red room, Langley's term for the guest chamber with velvet curtains and the armchair. No one sits in, because it creaks like a dying breath. Your client is a judge, old and paunchy, with rings that dig into your knuckles when he kisses your hand. I admire this place, he says. Efficient, well-managed, discreet. You nod, all true. He orders a drink, then another. He doesn't touch you, just talks. A lot. Your madam's sharp, he says. She was smart to stay quiet during the commission hearings. You blink. What commission? He chuckles. Don't worry your pretty head. Just some parliament business. Certain establishments were asked to provide insights. You want to ask more. But he leans back, folds his hands, and closes his eyes. Not sleeping, Just done. He tips you a sovereign anyway. When he leaves, you wait. Count to 10. Then start searching. You don't know what you're looking for. Only that you'll know it when you find it. A clue. A secret. A rope to pull until something unravels. The drawer of the desk contains the usual paper quills, a bottle of ink crusted shut. But beneath the bottom drawer lining, you find a compartment. Inside, another letter. Same cream paper, same gold seal. You take it, press it flat between your corset and chemise, and slip out. Back in your room, you lock the door, light a single candle, peel off your corset and unfold the letter. No salutation, no names. 3 sent. 1 remains. Proceed by Sunday. Ensure silence. Witnesses are to be offered the usual incentive or removed. Discretion required. Your breath catches. You read it again. 3 sent. Dora, Rabbit, Elsie. 1 remains. You burn the letter. Not because it's evidence, but because it feels radioactive. Your hands shake. Your stomach rolls. May knocks a while later. She doesn't ask why your face is pale. She just says, "You're not sleeping in here tonight. Come on." You follow her to her room. The bed's small, but warm. You lie back to back, not speaking for a while. Then she says, "You ever heard of Miss Fairlight?" You frown. Who? Old Madam. Before Langley. Ran a house like this. Real posh. High society. Had a deal with the government. What kind of deal? Information for protection. Blackmail for money. Ran for 10 years. Girls vanished. Some got rich. Some didn't. You roll over. What happened to her? May's voice drops. Burned alive. In her office. No witnesses. You don't sleep. The next morning, Langley is gone. No note. No schedule. Just gone. The house runs on muscle memory. The girls rotate tasks. Clean. Pour drinks. Dress clients. Pretend everything's fine. The upstairs girls. Still silent, still perfect. But something's different now. The tension has loosened ever so slightly, like the ropes snapped behind the curtain, and no one's quite sure what to do next. You ask May. "You think someone got her?" She shrugs. "Maybe she left." Tilly says, "Maybe she was taken, like the others." You spend the rest of the day watching everyone. The girls, the clients, the shadows. There's a new girl now. Her name's Nell, 15, pale, comes from a bakery, says she's used to hard work, smiles a little too easily. You help her unpack, show her the bed, the hooks on the door, the trick to getting the basin to drain without flooding. She asks, "How long have you been here?" You pause. Too long. That night, you check the floorboard. Your stash, 7 shillings, 2 sovereigns, a pocket knife, a French perfume sample, and the address card from the man who asked for information. You hold it. Think. You could run, or sell, or become Langley. The thought tastes like metal. Downstairs, laughter echoes from the parlor. Upstairs, silence reigns. And somewhere in the gap between floors, the house hums like a wound healing over something still buried. The first thing you notice the next morning is the stillness. Not quiet stillness. That eerie, cushiony kind of hush that wraps around everything, like the house is holding its breath. Langley's still gone. No note on the mantel. No instructions scrawled in red pencil. No threats about missed shifts or chipped teacups. Just a cold teapot and a parlor full of girls waiting for someone to declare the day official. May takes charge, of course. She always does when there's a power vacuum. She stands in the center of the parlor like she was born to wear a bustle and bark orders. Tea on in 10. We do the rota ourselves. Tilly morning sweep. Nell, you're on linens. And you, she points at you books and coin count. Let's see if our absent landlady's been skimming. You nod already halfway up the stairs. Someone has to. You've always been the one with the sharpest memory, the one who watches, the one who listens. Langley's office is small and dark, tucked behind the stairs like an afterthought. The doorknob is sticky with some kind of wax. Maybe she used it to seal her secret letters. You push it open and are hit immediately with the scent of ink and old lavender. The desk is clean, too clean, which is why the real ledger isn't there. But you've been watching. You know where she hides it. You kneel beside the fireplace and run your fingers along the baseboard. There it is, the warped plank. You pry it loose with the edge of your boot buckle. The book slides out like it's been waiting for you. It's smaller than you expected. Leather bound, edges cracked. Inside names, dates, services rendered, and this is new initials in the margins. Small notations, strange codes. There are also payments made to Langley, regular, monthly, from names you don't recognize. One marked with just a W, another with a symbol, a small, perfectly drawn compass. You flip to the last page. It's blank, except for a list. Rabbit Elsie, Clara, Dora. The question mark stares at you like an accusation. Back downstairs, May is lighting the lamps. You hand her the book. She reads silently, face stone. We were product, she says after a moment. Not workers. Not even people. You nod. And someone else owns the factory. May smirks. Guess we're in management now. That night, the air feels different. Not heavier charged. The girls sense it too. Tilly wears her locket for the first time in weeks. Nell, bless her, sticks close to you like a duckling. Even the upstairs girls glance down from the landing once or twice, eyes sharp and unblinking. You're about to go upstairs to change when you hear a laugh. Not the usual kind. Not the low purr of client charm. This one's real. Loud, rasping, joyless. You freeze. The laugh echoes from the second floor, followed by a thump, then silence. May and Tilly are already at the base of the stairs. Don't go, Tilly whispers. May rolls her eyes. If we wait, something worse will come down. You lead the way. The second floor is dark gaslight flickering. Room 6's door is open. No one's inside. You step in. The air is colder than outside. You shiver. The mirror, the warped one above the dresser, has been cleaned. You can see your reflection, pale, wide-eyed. And behind you, for a second, another girl. Green eyes, long hair, a scar on her collarbone. You spin. Nothing, just you, the empty bed, and the faint scent of camphor. May exhales sharply. She's watching. You don't ask who, you know. The next day, you and May call a house meeting. First time ever. No Langley, no rules. Just the girls gathered around the hearth. You lay the ledger on the table. Open it. Let them see. Tilly gasps. Nell just stares. You explain what you found. The initials. The payments. The pattern. You don't say trafficking. You don't have to. Then you look up and say, the part that matters. We don't have to keep playing by their rules. There's a long silence. Then May says, we make new ones. One by one, the girls agree. Even the upstairs ones. They descend slowly, wordlessly. For the first time, you see them up close. Perfect faces, blank expressions. One of them, tall, with a birthmark shaped like a comma, places a single coin on the table. We were promised safe passage, she says, but it cost us everything. She looks at you. We'll follow you if you do something. That night, you lock Langley's office and keep the key. You divide the ledgers. Copy out every suspicious transaction. You hide the originals in the wall behind a loose brick in room 5. Tilly guards it like a badger with a pearl. And then you start writing letters. To the man with the address card. To the inspector who always overpaid. To the constable who used to ask for Martha. You keep them short. Just enough to remind them you exist. Just enough to make them wonder what you know. Science fact. Fear sharpens memory. Stress improves recall in the short term. That's why you remember every detail now. Every coat button. Every name muttered in sleep. Your brain's working overtime. A survival engine finely tuned. Scholars argue whether that kind of memory becomes permanent. They say trauma etches itself into the hippocampus like acid into copper. Some memories you can't scrub out, even if you try. You think that's probably true, because no matter what happens next, you'll remember this house. The way it breathed, the way it swallowed, the way it finally learned to speak. The house is quieter these days, but it's not the same silence that used to stretch between knockings at the door or hang low after a girl vanished. No, this silence is tighter, tense, like the house is listening now. You go about your duties, though they don't feel like duties anymore. They feel like steps in a larger dance, something choreographed by necessity and held together with unraveling ribbon. Clients still come, of course. The house doesn't stop. The bills don't pay themselves. But now, every parlor meeting, every soft-laced flirtation, every sip of watered wine is something more than survival. It's reconnaissance. You've started asking questions, carefully, casually, with that flutter of laughter behind the veil of your fan. Oh, how interesting. What kind of business are you in? What club was that again? You've a crest on your ring, sir. Family or society? Some men lie. Some boast. Some smile in that way men do when they're underestimating you completely. And those are the ones who talk the most. You write it all down. You hide the notes in the base of the piano, wrapped in wax cloth to keep out the damp. May helps. Tilly, too. Even one of the upstairs girls, her name's Mags, and she used to teach Latin before her family turned her out, has begun copying out coded transcriptions at night by candlelight. Each of you has a role now. May plays the enforcer warning off any clients who sniff too close to the truth. Tilly charms secrets out of the younger patrons. The sons of power, you do the listening, the remembering, the planning. And you don't forget Dora. Not her giggle. Not her fingers always fussing with that charm bracelet. Not the way she looked the night before she disappeared, half in this world, half already gone. You think about the last four girls, their patterns, their patrons, the initials in Langley's ledger. There's a pattern, all right. And now that you've seen it, it haunts every candlelit corner. One rainy afternoon, a client returns you didn't expect, Mr. Pendle. The man with political ambitions and fingers that always tugged at his cravat like it was choking him. You greet him in the parlor with the same smile you give all the ones who think they're clever. He says, "I received your note." You pour him tea. "Did it frighten you?" He sips. "It interested me." He leans in. "You're cleverer than Langley. That much is clear. But clever girls burn out quickly in this business." You tilt your head. "Is that a warning?" "It's advice." You smile. "I prefer warnings." He sets his cup down. "What do you want?" And there it is. You answer without hesitation. Control over the house, the girls, the money. And I want you to make sure no one questions that. He watches you carefully, then nods just once. Done. Of course he's lying, but that's fine. So are you. You walk him to the door, and as he leaves, he mutters, "We'll speak again." He doesn't see May standing at the end of the hall, arms crossed, having heard every word. "He'll try to use you," she says once he's gone. You nod. Let him. I only need to get close enough to see what he fears. That night, you hold a meeting. Just the girls. There are 10 of you now, 2 new, both sharp-eyed and quiet. Mags brings out the ledger. Tilly spreads the letters. May lights a cigarette with a hand that doesn't tremble anymore. "We have the names you say. We know the buyers, the patrons, the men who funded Langley. We have the files, the codes, the notes." A pause. "Then we can sell this, or we can burn it." Tilly asks, "What's it worth?" You think about that for a long time. To them, power, silence, protection, and to us, you meet her gaze. Freedom. No one laughs. Later, you sit alone in your room, flipping through the notebook you've kept since the beginning. It's dog-eared, stained, the spine cracked, inside everything. Elsie's last breakfast, Rabbit's red thread hair, Dora's first giggle and last glance over her shoulder. The old science books would call it trauma encoding, a coping mechanism, a symptom, but you think of it more like an archive, a living record of what it costs to survive long enough to decide who you want to be. Modern psychologists still debate whether trauma changes your personality or simply reveals it. Some say your pre-trauma self is the true self. Others argue your post-trauma self is the one built on real knowledge, real fire. You don't know which is true. You only know that the version of you sitting here now, ink-stained fingers, corset half-unlaced notebook open, is the most awake you've ever been. May enters holding a letter. From the man she says, wants a meeting. He'll make it official. You glance at the time, just after midnight. We're the garden club, back alley entrance. You pause. Good, you say. Send Mags instead. May smirks. That'll rattle him. You nod. Rattled men make mistakes. You light a candle and set it on your windowsill. A signal. The new girls upstairs echo the light with a pair of candles in the hall. Mags heads out with a coat draped over her shoulders and a small knife hidden in her garter. No one questions her. Downstairs, Tilly sharpens pencils and sets out a fresh notebook. "Ready?" she asks. You tie back your hair, always. The house hums again, only now you can hear it clearly. It's not haunted, it's waking up. And every creaking floorboard, every soft whisper between walls, every locked drawer and opened ledger is no longer a threat. It's a language. And finally, you're fluent. The following morning arrives gray as damp wool and slow as molasses in January. You stretch under the covers, not because you feel rested. No one does anymore. But because your body insists on pretending it's part of a normal life. Downstairs, May is already at the ledger. She looks up as you enter the corner of her mouth, twitching into something that's nearly a smile. Mags met with him. You pour tea, and he offered her money, a lot of it. Said he'd keep the girls in lace and roses if she delivered the files. You stir in sugar. She'd tell him yes. May nods. Told him she'd be back in 3 days, with everything. You raise your cup in a silent toast. 3 days to rewrite the world. That night, the house moves like clockwork. Clients in, clients out. Nothing suspicious. No ruffled feathers. But the girls are quicker now, sharper. Everyone's on edge, in a good way. Like dogs just starting to trust the scent of freedom. You assign shifts, like a general. Upstairs, girls help for the first time without protest. Even Nell, barely 16, and still soft around the edges, volunteers to watch the door. Her hand shakes on the knob, but she doesn't back down. Everyone feels it. This change. This moment balancing on the edge of something colossal. You spend your hours in quiet conversation, whispered planning, list making, exit strategies, protection fund, rebuilding. Because what you're creating isn't just a coup. It's a new kind of house. A house where no girl disappears without her own say-so. Where the ledgers serve you. Where rooms aren't locked from the outside, and names don't get erased like chalk on stone. May says, "We'll need a new madam." You shake your head. "We'll need a council. No queens." She considers. "That'll go over well. We'll back it with facts, income shares, rotation authority, safety committees." She laughs in this house of all places and says, "Listen to you. Parliament in petticoats." You smile, but it's a tired smile, because you know what still waits, what still looms. 3 days, that's all. On the second day, a letter arrives. No signature, but the wax seal is the same gold, elegant, unmistakable. Compass emblem. Tight, red handwriting. You are playing a dangerous game. You are seen. You are noted. Return what is not yours. You show it to May. She spits on it and tosses it in the fire. "We are not theirs to collect," she growls. That night, the man himself shows up. Pendle. Uninvited. You spot him from the second-story landing. Top hat in hand. Coat immaculate, the smell of cologne and corruption trailing behind him like fog. He doesn't ask for a girl. He asks for you. You descend every stair, creaking like a warning. You stop halfway. Let him look up at you. Let him feel the power shift. "I thought you'd be smarter," he says. Langley was smart. She knew when to step back. You say nothing. He frowns. You think you can run this house without protection, without backing. "We built this system, girl. You just work in it, not anymore." He steps forward. May appears behind him, silent and firm. Tilly steps into the parlor, notebook in hand. Upstairs, you hear the creak of weight shifting, someone watching. Someone waiting. "You want to play business," he says, voice tight. "Fine. Then understand this. business has rules, and those who break them disappear. He leans in. We could still offer you a place. Clean, cushioned. You'd never have to work another shift. You blink slowly. Do I look like someone who's afraid of work? He scoffs, turns, and walks out. You watch his back until the door clicks shut. Then you bolt it. And then you exhale. The third day dawns with mist so thick it wraps the buildings in gauze. But inside the house, everything feels razor sharp. The air, the planning, the resolve. Mags returns at dusk with a satchel of papers and a message. They're backing off. Quietly. You've scared them. It's not victory. Not yet. But it's a shift. The next step. You go public. Not to the newspapers. No, they'd spin it or sell it. Instead, you write letters to other houses, to laundries, to boarding schools with girls who vanished. You name names, share addresses. You start a chain. The girls here vote on everything. Uniform prices, shift hours, whether Nell should be allowed to wear trousers on Thursdays. She wins by 2 votes. Tilly opens a library in the old guest room. May starts keeping the books honestly. And you stop taking clients. Instead, you teach. Reading, writing, accounting. The things Langley always said weren't necessary. One day, a man comes knocking, flashing his wallet like a promise. You answer the door yourself. We're closed, you say. He tries to protest. Flashing coins. Influence. A family name like buttered toast. We're closed, you say again, and shut the door in his face. Not with anger. With peace. You stand there, palm flat against the wood, and finally feel what you never thought possible in this house. Stillness. Real, honest stillness. Science fact collective trauma. When processed communally can lead to post-traumatic growth. It's rare, but it happens. It starts when people take back their stories. It grows when they take back their names. You look around the house. This isn't Langley's house anymore. It's yours. It's theirs. And it's becoming something new. Something no ledger ever planned for. Something that haunts no one, not even you. And now, with the last lamp flickering low and the city finally exhaling beyond your window, it's time to let your thoughts soften. Let the walls of that narrow, gaslit brothel fall away. The alley outside fades the cobblestones smoothing under mist. The rooms grow quiet. No laughter. No footsteps. No whispers behind velvet doors. Just hush. You breathe deeper. You feel the corset loosen. You slip out of the night shift, out of the fog-thick evenings, out of the creak of the third stair from the top. The house, once filled with secrets and shadows, is quiet now. Not from silence, but from peace. Even the floorboards seem to rest easier. The ghosts, if there ever were any, have let go. So can you. Let the fire in the parlor burn low. Let the soot from the chimneys stop falling on your skin. Let the memory of stiff bodices and tilted mirrors fall to the floor with the rest of the past. You are safe. You are home wherever you are now. There's no knock on the door, no bell, no ledger left to sign. Just the soft sound of a fan humming. Or maybe it's your breath, steady, slow, safe. Let your limbs go heavy. Let your thoughts turn quiet. Let yourself drift, because the hardest work has already been done. The night has passed, and in this place, finally, there's nothing more to survive. Just sleep. End of script. Sweet dreams.